My next question could be the possibility of the seventh nuclear test by North Korea. This year alone, Kim Jong-un made a couple of rhetoric of the possibility of the nuclear test, but so far, no action yet. And what do you think? Why, even though there was there were many signals, why Kim Jong-un so far has not taken the seventh nuclear test? What is your opinion?
Well, my opinion is that they should refrain from conducting another nuclear test. A seventh nuclear test would be obviously a very serious violation of multiple Security Council resolutions. It would be a serious escalation of tension on the peninsula. It would lead to destabilization of the peninsula. So I strongly hope that they will refrain from a test. I'm cautious about speculating on reasons for the DPRK leadership's decisions on things like the timing of a nuclear test or even a missile launch. I hope that other countries in the region are urging the DPRK to refrain from a nuclear test. And I hope the DPRK understands that there will be a very serious response should they proceed with a seventh nuclear test. Beyond that, I'm cautious about speculating regarding their thinking.
Do you have any strong message, to tell Kim Jong regime that if Kim Jong regime conducts seventh nuclear test, and what could be the consequences from America and the rest of the world if Kim Jong-un conducts seventh nuclear test as a kind of pre-warning?
Well, I'm not sure if I want to be issuing any warnings, but as a statement of fact, we have stayed in very close touch with the ROC, Japan, and others about how we should respond should there be a seventh nuclear test. And I feel very good about the level of communication and coordination that we've had already in preparation for a seventh nuclear test. I think our response will be swift and very clear, and it will take form in different facets. I think there would have to be some type of UN response, in as much as a nuclear test would be a serious violation of Security Council resolutions. I think there will be a political and diplomatic response. I know many, many countries around the globe are concerned about the possibility of a nuclear test by the DPRK. Our militaries are continuing to work together very closely to make sure that we'll be able to respond quickly and in an appropriately strong manner to provocations like a nuclear test. I just want to let our friends in the DPRK know that they should not proceed, but if they proceed, we will respond together with the ROC and other partners in the international community. We will respond quickly, clearly, decisively to their provocation.
Okay. After sixth nuclear test in 2017, America proposed the new sanction resolution, and it was supported by China and Russia, and that was really a strong signal of united, the message of the world. So, is America discussing next step of a sanction resolution with the countries like China or Russia if North Korea conducts seventh nuclear test?
Yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail about all of the sort of diplomatic discussions that we are having. But I think it's fair to say that we have engaged in considerable amount of substantive discussions with our key partners about how we might respond together to a seventh nuclear test.
So far, Russia and China are really, opposing any further sanction resolutions by United Nations. So, do you think that if North Korea conducts seventh nuclear test, Russia and China may agree new round of sanctions, or by looking at current international, the situations of Russia-Ukraine war and Taiwan, the Strait, the crisis, do you think that China and Russia would agree with America to give further sanction against North Korea?
I don't want to speculate on how Beijing or Moscow may approach a UN effort after a nuclear test, if it does happen. I will say it was obviously unfortunate that China and Russia decided to veto the latest resolution we tried in the Security Council after an ICBM launch by the DPRK. I think as members of the United Nations, as members of the Security Council, especially for China and Russia as permanent members of the Security Council, they have a responsibility to uphold Security Council resolutions. And when a country like DPRK so blatantly violates requirements of Security Council, I think it's kind of irresponsible for any member of the Security Council to be vetoing a legitimate effort to respond to a provocation like a nuclear test. So I don't want to conjecture or speculate, but what I can say is that we hope to be able to work together with both Beijing and Moscow to respond appropriately in the UN context.
Okay, my next question would be the same questions which I raised to my Prime Minister Han Duck-soo yesterday. So that's why the South Korean government's policy on the, several issues which I want to raise to you is very clear. So if I may raise the same questions to you this morning is, after Kim Jong-un's legalization of its nuclear forces, there are strong arguments inside South Korea that whether it is the time by South Korea and US as well to redeploy American tactical nuclear weapons in Korean Peninsula, so that first we can give more push for denuclearization, and secondly, we should give more security assurance to South Korean public that America would do something if Kim Jong-un used nuclear weapons.
So I'm aware that there is growing interest here in Korea about the possibility of redeploying U.S. tactical nuclear weapons into the ROC. The U.S. and the ROC, as you know, have a very special and strong alliance, and we continue to work on refining and strengthening that alliance so that we have the credible and strong deterrent capability on the peninsula to deal with any contingency. And that effort is a continuous effort by both governments, both militaries. We also just recently had an extended deterrence dialogue in Washington, D.C. It was I think a very long, productive, and detailed discussion on what concrete steps we can take together to, again, enhance that deterrent capability on the peninsula. I personally don't think reintroduction of tactical nuclear weapons into the ROC is the right answer. I think it's much better, much more constructive for us to look at other concrete ways to make sure that our deterrent capability is what it needs to be. And I think that effort will continue. And there is strong consensus within both governments that we need to focus on making sure that we have what we need on the peninsula to deal with any contingency.
Actually, there is dialogues going on after Yoon administration in South Korea, and there are even more strong assurances by American government about the extended deterrence. But if we, go back to the history background, North and South Korea agreed on denuclearization of whole Korean Peninsula, and in that agreement, North Korea promised this no, nuclear program, while South Korea promised to to withdraw its American tactical weapons in 1991. But now, after almost 30 years, this promise was broken by North Korea side. So that's why some people now argue that South Korea is legitimate, to bring back tactical nuclear weapons from United States. Yes. Another, my question is that the China, the role. As long as China is silent on the denuclearization of North Korea, which is very clear to me, and as long as China stays out the economic sanctions against North Korea, then actually there is no any tools to pressure the denuclearization of Kim Jong-un. So during my stay in D.C., I was in D.C. last week. During I was stay in D.C., Congressman Chabot raised the issue of having a kind of, the nuclear arming dialogue among United States, South Korea, and Japan. That does not mean that America would help, nuclear arming of South Korea or Japan, but it would give a very strong signal to Chinese side that unless China does anything, to stop the North Korea's nuclear program, then there could be a possibility for America to reconsider this issue, especially South Korea and Japan. What do you think of this suggestion?
Well, so first of all, I totally understand the frustration that everyone feels about broken promises by Pyongyang. I think having been involved in this issue for many years, has certainly been frustrated and pained by the fact that we have been unable to keep North Korea to uphold its commitments and promises in different contexts, including the six-party talks. But I don't think reintroduction of nuclear weapons into the ROC is the right answer. I think a much more constructive approach is what we're doing together with Seoul on finding ways to make sure that we have the strongest possible deterrent capability on the peninsula. Reintroduction of nuclear weapons, I think, will raise some complications and ramifications beyond the peninsula that will, in fact, be, I think, complicating to maintain the stability and peace, and, of course, pursuing a diplomatic path towards denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.